What you are about to read is one of the most bizarre and unusual chapters in the history of America. Dozens of people have come forward to tell of their experiences inside the old building. St. Licking Pike, 29 were willing to sign sworn affidavits. The witnesses tell of several earthbound spirits and a series of violent, demonic attacks. Each incident actually happened, and, though fictionalized for the purpose of telling, the story is based on these TRA experiences. After 5 years of research, investigation and interviews, the story is written exactly as told by the victims. For 41 years, during the 1800s, the building was a slaughterhouse. The spilled blood from the slaughterhouse, and the proximity of the north-flowing Licking River, attracted satanic worshippers who used the site for sacrificial grounds. After the slaughterhouse, the building was, briefly, a bowling alley. During the 1930s and 1940s it was a successful gambling casino known as the Primrose. The owner was forced out by the mob. Later named the Latin Quarter, it was again a popular night spot, but the owners were repeatedly arrested on gambling charges during the 1950s. The building was more recently known as the Hard Rock Café, and was closed in January 1978 on request of the police chief due to fatal shootings on the premises. Bobby and Janet Mackey were brought into this story in the spring of 1978 when they purchased the building with the intent to renovate it and turn it into Kentucky's version of Gillies. Carl Lawson was their first employee. Some may not be willing to accept the concept of demons and spirits of the dead wandering amongst us. Some may not like to accept the idea that others are telling the truth when speaking of their encounters with the restless dead. The phenomena within and about Bobby Mackey's music world have yet to be satisfactorily defined by any explanation other than, it's haunted. St. Matthew chapter 12 verse 43-45. When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest and findeth none. Then he saith, I will return into my house from whence I came out, and when he is come, he findeth him empty, swept and garnished. Then goeth he, and taketh with him 7 spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and dwell there, and the last state of that man is worse than the first. Hell's Gate. Chapter 1. According to Janet Mackey, she felt something evil about the building the very first time she stepped foot inside the place. After several hours of discussing that day with her, this is how she remembers it happening. Gray dust poured through the open window of the brown Datsun 240Z as Bobby Mackey drove the car around the back of the mammoth structure that had captivated his heart only a couple of hours earlier. Bobby looked at her while braking to a stop, crunching gravel beneath the tires. It was obvious to Janet that he already had his mind set to buy the building, even though, from the outside, it did not look very much like a wise investment. The white, shingled siding of the first floor stretched out for a great distance and had suffered many long years of abuse from the hammering wind and rains. There were more places than one could count where weather had ripped and stolen away a shingle here and another there. Over top of the main floor was a second level that sat squarely on top of the first. It occupied but a small space. It appeared that it had been added on to so it could be used as an upstairs office or flat. It was constructed of gray, vertical clapboard with 3 square windows set at even intervals, windows that had seen and held captive the secrets and memories of the past long forgotten by mortals. It was apparent to Janet that this building was once a magnificent place where the elite had gathered on a daily basis, but now all that remained was the shell of its former self. Bobby, I don't know, Janet said apprehensively as she reached over and squeezed her husband's right hand. With the baby coming and all, do you think we ought to stick our necks out this far? Janet Mackey, a diminutive brunette, stood about 5 feet tall. She was in her 4th month of pregnancy with their second child. You'll love it, he said as his sparkling, deep blue eyes scanned the outside of the building. Come on, let's get out and take a look around.